Okay, you are once again welcome to this presentation where we continue to look at educational technology. In the past videos, we already gave an overview of what we mean by educational technology, and we looked at the learning objectives, we looked at the evolution, how technology has evolved, we looked at the concept education, and also we looked at technology. So in this lecture, we want now to continue and look at educational technology. So when you bring the two concepts together to form one, you have education and then technology. So that is educational technology. So what is this educational technology that we abbreviate as EDT? So we say that this educational technology is concerned with the development, the application, and evaluation of system, techniques, and aid to improve the process of human learning. Now, in short, this EDT means the application of the various ICTs in the process of teaching and learning. So it is the application, for example, of the different digital tools in the process of teaching and learning. And this process of teaching and learning, we are looking at content preparation, content delivery, we are looking at assessment, and we are looking at learner engagement. So the use of the various digital tools in the process of teaching and learning is what we call educational technology. EDT also includes the non-projected media. For example, we have the chalkboard, we have the whiteboard. Like here, you can see I have a whiteboard. You have marker pens. So all those different kinds, whether it is a projected media or it is non-projected, so a combination of which is what we call educational technology. Now, of course, different scholars have given different definitions. For example, when you look at Otto, 1994, he notes that EDT is a systematic way of designing instructions so that learners can benefit maximally. Designing instruction. So in the design could include, for example, the use of these different digital tools. When you are planning, designing when you are planning an instruction, and then you include the use of these digital tools, that is what Otto defines as EDT. That you design an instruction, you plan for an instruction, but in that instruction, you integrate the use of these ICTs. It is, of course, the use of different media in teaching and the use of instructional materials in order to improve learning in a participatory manner. We are talking of improving learning. So when you use the ICTs, when you use the digital tools, then learning is enhanced, learning is increased. And then we talk of in a participatory manner. So when you are using these digital tools, then learners should have also access. They should have a chance, for example, to manipulate, a chance to touch, a chance to feel, and a chance to use. Okay, so of course, different scholars also have looked at education and have defined education in a different ways. We already looked at this, but here we look at the definition of Mzee Nyerere Kambarage, who wrote in 1982, and he says it is the transmission of accumulated wisdom and knowledge of society from one generation to the next, and also to prepare the younger people for their future membership. For their future membership of the society in which they find themselves. And of course, we say that education begins from the time we are born up to the time we are lowered into the grave. But of course, some scholars argue that actually education starts much earlier. It starts when the child is still in its mother's womb. Because they say that what a mother does will affect the unborn child. So it means even when the child is in its mother's womb, that child is learning. That child adopts to behavior. That child is able to learn new things. So that's why they say that actually education begins when the child is in its mother's womb, and then continues throughout to somebody's lifetime up to the time when people breathe out their last. Now, there are two distinctions we want to make. We want to see the difference between technology in education and the technology of education. So those are two concepts. There is technology in education and then technology of education. So technology of education and also technology in education. So these are two concepts, and they have different meaning. They are not the same, but quite often they are confused. Quite often they are confused, but these are two different terms. So when we talk of the term technology in education, what do we mean? When we talk of technology in education, this term, it is meant the application of machines, the use of the different digital tools in the process of teaching and learning. That is what we call technology in education. For example, if I'm delivering a lesson or I'm delivering a lecture, and then I use a laptop, I use a PC, personal computer. Maybe I use a smartphone. If I use a smartphone, or I use an iPad, I use a projector. Like what I'm presenting now, I'm using a projector. I'm having a laptop computer. So there is a camera, a digital camera, that is taking this video. So this is what we would call technology in education. So when you get these gadgets, the different digital tools, and you use them in the process of teaching and learning, so that is what we term as technology in education. Now, this aspect is described as the hardware aspect. We describe it as the hardware aspect. Why? Because as you can see, actually these are hardware. You have a computer, it is hardware. You have a digital camera, it is hardware. You have a projector, you can see it is hardware. So we call this the hardware aspect. Now, it involves the use of pieces of instructional materials. It involves the use of pieces of instructional materials, media such as audio, media, visual media, projected media, graphics, computers, and so on and so forth. Now, technology in education refers to the use of technological hardware. The use of this technological hardware in education. So that is what we call educational technology in education. The use of these different digital tools, the different ICTs in the process of delivering a lesson. You can use these tools to prepare your lesson. You use these tools to deliver your lesson, and you can use these tools to make an assessment. And of course, the assessment can be continuous assessment, but also it can be summative assessment. Continuous assessment is the one that continues from the time the learner starts. For example, starts a term or a semester, up to the time they come to the end of the term. So it continues, it goes on. You give courseworks, you give class activities, you can give course tests. So that is continuous assessment. Then the summative is the one that comes at the end. For example, you give end of term examinations, you give end of semester examinations. So that kind of assessment, that evaluation that comes at the end of the process is what we call the summative. So technologies can be used either in the continuous assessment or in the summative, and that is what we call technology in education. Then we have technology of education. This is technology of education. So we have been explaining technology in education. So technology of education refers to the learning strategies, the instructional strategies, the teaching and learning methods that are used in the process of teaching, which aim at achieving a learning goal. If I want to deliver a lesson, what instructional strategies, what methods am I going to use? Am I going to use face-to-face? Am I going to use, for example, online instructional strategies? Online instructional strategies that can include asynchronous learning, or that can include synchronous learning. So what kind of methods am I using? So a combination of those methods, those teaching techniques, those teaching approaches, that is what we call technology of education. So it should always be very clear, and the two concepts should not always be confused. Technology in education and technology of education. Technology in education, as I make my summary, it means the use of the different digital tools in the process of teaching and learning. Technology of education, it means the use of the different learning approaches, instructional strategies, teaching approaches, which we call the software aspect. Technology in education, we call it the hardware aspect. So the two concepts are different, and they should not always be confused. So as we go on, we look at examples of educational technology. Of course, you have the audio media, you have the visual media, and then you have the visual audio. We shall look at them. Now, these are teaching learning devices that appeal to the auditory sense. So the audio media appeals to the ears. They consist of radio, they consist of audio recording machines, such as the audio tapes, the disc machines, the telephone, and so on and so forth. So those are the audio media. Then we have the visual media, and of course these appeal to the eyes. These are instructional media that appeal to the sense of seeing. For example, most graphics are in this family of instructional media. They include, for example, the pictures, the photographs, the diagrams, the cartoons, the charts, the still pictures, the slides. For example, here I'm projecting slides, as you can see. So all of these are in the class of the visual aids. Then you have the audio-visual media, where you combine the two. You combine the audio, and then you combine the visual. So these appeal both to the sense of sight, and also appeal to the sense of hearing. So these instructional materials that have the capacity to provide issues in the form of pictures and audio effect, in form of commentaries, and so on and so forth. So those are majorly the three examples. the audio, the visual, and then the audio-visual when you combine the two. So we can now take a short break. When we return, we shall pick on from here. So thank you so much.